Alrighty, this is a repackaged one from a couple years ago, but normally, because it got a bizarre copyright strike, the closing bit had basically the music track from that old, concession stand promo bit. Let's go out to the lobby. Just added over the usual closing cards, but odd copyright strike in that it was from it was from UMG on behalf of a music group I've never heard of, from a song I never heard of. Apparently they also used that bit in one of their songs. Okay. In order for it to be a copyright claim, and they also blocked it worldwide, which really I don't care about, because it's a 2-year-old video, no one's watching it. But it has to be their material. That clip, I'm pretty sure, is public domain. They can use it, I can use it, no one's got a claim on it. Fix your damn system, YouTube. It's getting annoying. No, because of the nature of the video itself, though, I figured this was important to keep up. So it's a John Campea response thing about, talking more idiotic nonsense about Star Trek he knows nothing about the film. So I figured I'll just pull it, standardize it to the rest of the videos I got up now, and we'll do it again. So here you go.
Okay, here's that response video to Campea's latest little Star Trek declaration. It's no, Star Trek films are as popular as ever. It's like, even with the disaster of Star Trek Beyond, notwithstanding. Okay, he has also gone on record to say that he refuses to take inflation into account, because then if you don't, you got to take into other things account, like streaming and video, online sales and rental. Okay, there's some validity to that, but the thing is, you got to take something into account, John, and it's not just inflation is only part of it. It's really got specifically inflation in ticket prices, because that directly affects how many butts in the seats you're actually getting for the ticket price. And I'll demonstrate here now. First, let's look at Campea's thing first, so I don't be accused of missing something.
With the most recent problems in trying to get a fourth film made and declining interest from the general movie-going audience, is it just time for Paramount to abandon the idea of Star Trek as a film franchise? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, one of the interesting things coming out of Star Trek Beyond, which was the last Star Trek movie, which, quite frankly, to me, was the best of the J.J. Abrams movies. I've liked all the J.J. Abrams era Star Trek films, including Into Darkness. It might be my least favorite of the three, but I liked it. I still thought it was good. It had some very bad, cheesy moments. Khan! It had some bad, cheesy moments, yes. But overall, I thought it was good. I really liked the first one in 2009, but I thought Beyond was even the best one. But even as the best one, it made the least amount of money. Made $350, $340, $360, somewhere around that, $360, $370 million worldwide, right? We'll get to the specific numbers in a second. So one could be tempted to say, well, none of the movies made that much money. Like, it's the first one roughly made the same amount, maybe a little bit more. Into Darkness made a little bit more than that. So they're all roughly in there. So you could be tempted to say, with the third one making the least amount, by a little bit, could you say, hey, there's declining interest, there's, nobody cares about Star Trek anymore. Could you say that, with the Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth drama now, with them leaving and all this kind of stuff, and you got some new television stuff coming, is it just time to say Star Trek should give up on the big screen? They should just give up on the big screen. Well, there's something we should keep in mind here about all that. And that is, while you might be tempted to say that there is declining interest in Star Trek and nobody cares about Star Trek anymore, let's take a couple things in mind here. Now, here we are on the website Box Office Mojo, looking at all the different Star Trek movies, right? If we look at the most recent one, Star Trek Beyond made $343 million worldwide. Okay, fine. That is the least amount that we've had out of these new movies, because whereas that one made 340 something, Star Trek Into Darkness made $467 million, and the 2009 Star Trek made $385 million. So yes, Star Trek Beyond made the least amount of money out of all the Star Trek films. That much has been established. But let's look at it in terms of the bigger picture. How is the popularity of Star Trek holding up now compared to, say, the last round of Star Trek movies we had, right? Like First Contact, like Insurrection, like things like that. Well, let's look at that. The last Star Trek movie that came out was in 2002, Star Trek Nemesis. Star Trek Nemesis, that's not a typo, folks. Star Trek Nemesis only made $67 million. $67 million worldwide. That's how much Star Trek Nemesis made. Now, let's go to the one prior to that, Star Trek Insurrection. Star Trek Insurrection only made $112 million. Like, Star Trek Beyond literally made more than triple what Star Trek Insurrection did. Let's go back to one before that, First Contact, a film that some Star Trek fans think it's their favorite Star Trek movie. Star Trek Insurrection only made $146 million. Right? Star Trek Beyond made quite a lot more than double what Star Trek First Contact made. So what I would kind of say, and what my argument would be right now, is simply this. In the grand scheme of things, Star Trek right now is more popular, and the Star Trek movies right now are more popular than they've been in 30 years. Even with Star Trek Beyond only making $340-something million, it's still far more popular than the previous generations of films that they did. Far more popular. Far more people are coming out to see them. Far more people want to go out to the movies to see them. Now, it costs more to make these movies than the other ones, sure. But you still can't argue the statistical fact that more people are coming out to the theater to see these movies now than they did in the previous generation. You can legitimately make the argument that the Star Trek movies today are more popular than the Star Trek movies have ever been, even when you adjust for inflation. So I think that means there are two sides to this coin we got to look at. Yes, the Star Trek franchise is not making $600, $700, $800 million like a lot of studios like to see their big tentpole movies do. True. On the other hand, it's doing better than any Star Trek movies before. And I think there is still a market for it. I really do. I really still believe there is a market for this. And here's the other thing. I believe partially the dip in, I think there are two main things that attributed to the dip in the box office results for Star Trek Beyond. Number one is that despite the fact that I liked it, a lot of other people didn't like Star Trek Into Darkness. I think a lot of people like Star Trek 2009, which is why you saw an upswing in the box office for Star Trek Into Darkness. But I also think there was a bunch of people that didn't like Star Trek Into Darkness, which attributed a little bit to the dip going into Star Trek Beyond. On top of that, do you guys remember the first trailer they put up for Star Trek Beyond? When they played Sabotage and all that kind of stuff, it was a brutal, awful trailer. Everybody hated that trailer. Me included. And I think that put them behind the eight ball. I think they were fighting an uphill battle ever since that, trying to get people, because that first trailer made that movie look stupid. And I think it was an uphill battle after that. It was a real uphill battle. So I think combining those two things contributes a little bit to the decline in box office. But I also think most people who saw Star Trek Beyond quite enjoyed it, which I think will reflect positively in whatever the next movie is. Now, you still got to get through this whole Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth situation. You got to get these guys back on board, all that kind of stuff. But in general, nah, I don't think the big screen days of Star Trek are over. I think they're more popular today than they've ever been. We've got it looks like we've got some strong television support coming, both in the forms of Star Trek Discovery, which I quite enjoy, and we got this new Jean-Luc Picard TV show coming, on top of some other projects they've got coming. So, yeah, I think everything is positioned really for Star Trek to have a healthy existence on the big screen. Again, I don't think Star Trek is nearly popular enough to be $600 million movies or $700 million movies. No, but they can be $400 plus or $500 plus million films, which is just fine. And if they can get back to that, I think everything's fine and everybody's happy. So that's just kind of my take on that. What do you guys think? Jump down to the comments section below and leave me your thoughts.
Okay. again, he goes back to that Box Office Mojo thing. Well, something he doesn't do on Box Office Mojo is they also have a chart showing average ticket prices going back to year by year to 1910. So the information is there to be utilized. And what I did here, in this case, is take the box office take for every Star Trek movie, starting from the motion picture on through to beyond. And let's look at the domestic box office take. Again, it's the foreign take is harder to quantify, especially with the earlier films, because it wasn't a big deal back then, so they didn't keep as good of records, and there were fewer markets. So just the one constant we have is the domestic box office take, and then we take the average ticket price, simple at math, and how many butts and seats does that translate into? So start with the motion picture, 1979, domestic box office. 82 and a quarter million, roughly. Not bad in 1979. In fact, it was one of the top 11 moneymakers of the year in 79. Average ticket price, $2.51. That translates into about almost 33 million people went to see it when there was initial release in the domestic box office. And maybe some re-releases, but not much of, it's just 32 million people, I figure. Wrath of Khan, which is a big one, but it made about 4 million less. And when that translates to the average ticket price now up to $2.94, that's about 6 million fewer people. The difference being that the motion picture was saddled with all the costs of the Phase 2 series that never got made and all the development costs in that. So Wrath of Khan was a hell of a lot more profitable for Paramount, but that's how that worked out. So on to Star Trek 3, Search for Spock. Slightly smaller take at the box office, but $3.33 average ticket price. 4 million fewer people seeing it, but again, there was not a lot of production spent on that thing, so it was also profitable. Yeah. Then we go on to the Voyage Home, and this is the first time we cracked the 100 million mark for the Star Trek movies, and it picked up. That's 7 million more. This is the highest figures since the motion picture. But for some reason they tend to ignore this. They always keep going about Khan, or got to do Wrath of Khan, got to do a big baddie. This movie, pretty much skunked Wrath of Khan, and it's totally gone. There's no big bad villain. It's a Yule log at a soccer ball. And then we get a bump on the road. It's Shatner's turn, Final Frontier, and he was saddled with a bunch of stuff. He was the first-time movie director. He'd done a lot of TV and theater, but he hadn't directed movies yet, so he didn't feel he had the clout to tell the studio to go stuff itself when they started throwing these mandates and cutting the budget, and asking if he could, somehow obtain his, Star Trek in Search of God story and make it funny. And we all know what happened at that point. And the figures show, 13 million people. Fucking less than half the audience, and also had the misfortune of opening, the same time that the first Batman movie came out. So it was behind several 8 balls on that one. And a few years later, we got the Undiscovered Country. Oh, it also didn't help that at this point in '89, Star Trek Next Generation already been out 2 years. So it's no longer a big event to see something Star Trek. It's like we watch it every week on TV. Why do we need the movies now? And then Undiscovered Country comes up. It's like, it's really starting to become an event now. It's like they're lucky they got the other 4 million in there, and probably lower production costs too, I think. But we're up to 17 million people here. Even though the box office take, but it's just as popular as Search for Spock, but it's had 5 million fewer people seeing it. So, you gotta take these things into account. This is what happens when you don't. Generations, a little bit more, but you're talking the first Next Gen movie, and Next Gen ran its course, so there wasn't a demand for that. It was like one reviewer said it's like doing WKRP in Cincinnati, the movie. It's like they ran this course. There was no seething rage of unfinished business that there was with the original series. That drove that nobody was really. It was just sort of expected. Oh, they're going to do movies now. Okay. Then First Contact. And look, 92 million, that's almost 20 million more. Well, no, it's only about 2 million more people showing up. Because now we're up to 442 a ticket average. And, you know, and then Insurrection, decent amount at the time, you know, 70 million, but, you know, we're talking, again, fewer people showing up. And the ticket price, you know, getting close to doubling the average from when Motion Picture came out. And on the Nemesis, and this one is, I think, the first big example of dissatisfaction with one project affecting another. This was a time when the fans were really pissed off about what was going on with Enterprise and being totally ignored and even, you know, scoffed at by the production people. And this is the only way to do a payback, is torpedo the new movie. You know? And things did turn around there, because this is when, you know, I think they tried to, you know, brought in the third season arc, I think, try and turn things around. Or actually, we went to the season, and then the fourth season came out. It's like, okay, hand over Mandy Coto, and this is when they had and after this is when they had the fourth season, which I think Jeff Combs said this should have been the first season. They finally got things on track. They recognized, yes, we are a prequel. Let's act like a prequel. And things started around. Unfortunately, there's also when CBS took over, and Les Moonves, who doesn't know a phaser from a pomegranate, you know, shut the whole thing. They just gave them a year to wrap things up, and they satisfactory. So, okay. Everything sits fallow for 7 years, and here comes JJ Trek. $257 million. Oh my God, look at this. Well, the average ticket price is $750 by now. That means 34,364,003 people. And let's back up here. Look up here. How many saw the motion picture? 32. You're not talking a big increase here. And something I didn't include in here was the number of screens. JJ Trek opened up on over 3,000 screens. The motion picture was only on like 1,000 screens at the time. So 3 times as many screens, and you're only drawing in another 2 million people. That's not that big an increase there, John. JJ Trek was not that much more popular than the motion picture. It just cost a hell of a lot more, and the tickets were like, look, that's $5 more than that's almost 3 times the cost. Yeah, that is 3 times the cost of the original of a ticket back in '79. You're not getting that big a bang here. And then here comes Into Darkness. This is one where it goes off the rails because they went directly against the fan request and did con, even though there were polls at the time that they were still making the thing. And there was a poll out there. What do you not want to see? And the big winner, what they don't want to see is they don't want to see him do con. What do? They do con. And again, a lot of people are coming out, you know, they want to see just how big a train wreck this was. Yep, and they got less. But the ticket price is already over $8 by now. And guess what? They got about 6 million fewer people to show up. And because of that, and again, also a long delay, 3 years, here comes Beyond. Arguably the better of the 3 films. I still think it's a mess, because I still think it's like, what the hell are you doing? And with 158 million, respectable total, right? Wrong. When the movie cost about 300 million to make, they lost money on the domestic. They were saved by the foreign box office, but they may have broken even between that and the home video sales. But we're talking an average ticket price of $865, which you'd think that's they still made twice as much as the motion picture. They had less than 2 million people show up for that film in domestic box office, domestically. That's 30 million less, or 31 million less, almost 31 million less than what's the motion picture. That's where you really got to take into account the box office, and the change in prices. You got to take these things into account, or you look like a fool. Because you keep saying, look at the money. Yeah, again. Back in 1979, it's like, you got, what was the price of gas back then? It was under $1 a gallon. And now it's like there's places where it's still over $5 a gallon. Thank you, California. Morons keep blowing the curve. I mean, down here in Florida, it's still, struggling to stay below 3, for regular gas. You got to take these into account, okay? Also back in 1979, I think a Ferrari, was like $16,000. Now you're looking to buy a used Ford for that price, okay? So yeah, whenever you see Campea dragging up that box office list from Box Office Mojo, you got to slam him on this. It's like you're not getting the picture when you do that. You're not showing that that it's popular now. No, it's not, because these are the butts in the seats that you're getting, and it's not looking good here. So yeah, I think it is time to abandon the JJ verse on this one. They've got their 3 movies. Let them go. They got to do they want to do another 4th movie to keep that license away from CBS. Yeah, I think we'll see JJ. I think we'll see Tarantino do a movie fairly soon here. But after that, it's like, it's time to hand it back to CBS and see if they can get somebody who knows what they're doing. And enough of this, the strange license they got with Paramount and Bad Robot, because they have not really grown the fan base that much. They introduced a lot of people, but hopefully what they've done is introduce people to the good Star Trek, and they'll hopefully add to the stuff. So yeah, I thought Jay, but look at this stuff. That was pretty good here. I'm hoping that's it. I think a lot of them are the ADHD. It's like they can't sit still long enough for a story. Like say it's forever. So there's my take on it. Comments down below, and also PayPal, Patreon, all the other ones. Vote early, vote often, and we'll